The interesting thing about webinars like this that are very rich in information, sometimes you're going to want to go back and see some of these things again, see the slides. If you miss something, okay, we're going to make sure that you don't miss any of this. People are still coming in. Welcome, folks. If you did just join us, this is part 2 of a 3-part series on Alzheimer's disease. Welcome. This is the webinar for Define Your Health, Sculpting and Nutrition. I'm Steve Foss. I'm going to be piloting the ship here. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. So thank you guys for giving us your Monday night. We appreciate it, and we're going to make it worth your while. If you're looking at the screen and you can't hear us or you can't chat in, there is a phone number on here. Let us know. We'll open in. We would like to hear from you. If you don't call in, that's okay. You'll notice that there is, in fact, a chat box on the right-hand side of your. Chat in your questions. We'll try to get everybody's question answered tonight. Welcome. I see that Kim has joined us, and Jody has joined us. We're waiting for some people to come in here. 7:01 Central Standard Time. I'm Steve Foss, and I'll be at the helm of the ship tonight. If you did just come into the room, we are going to be talking about Alzheimer's disease. This is part 2 of a 3-part series. Tonight, we're going to be talking about DHA fats. No, that is not a pool player from Minnesota. That is something that is very, very important for your health. So welcome, everybody. We're going to get started here in just a couple minutes. We're going to wait for the last few people to come into the room. I'm Steve Foss here, and I want to thank you guys for being on this call. Let me see if I can get everybody muted here. So you're going to be muted, and there's a couple reasons why we do that. We want to make sure that the audio quality of this call is the best that we can get it. Let me see if I can just get everybody else muted here. And we've just about taken care of a little housekeeping here. We're going to get started here in about 2 more minutes. Jerry, welcome.
Leave those there and grab one each. So we need to bring those
and I am not sure why I can't get some of you folks muted here. Time 7:03 Central Standard Time. We're actually going to get started here in just a second. Some of you that have not called in, you must be using your computer. I'm going to ask you to pull the volume and mute yourself because you're coming in loud and clear, and we're starting to get some feedback on you. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes, folks. Let the last stragglers that are coming in join us here and get started here in just a minute. We have a full room tonight. Seating is limited. I'm glad that you guys came in before some of the people get kicked off here. Welcome. Time 7:04. We're going to get started in 1 minute. Those of you that are just coming in the room, and there are 2 of you that I am unable to mute because you are using your microphone from your computer or possibly using a tablet. Can you do me a favor, and all of us that are in the room, can you mute yourself or pull that volume level down? This way we're going to try to keep the noise to a minimum. And got it right here. Those others, thank you for joining us. Well, let's get the call started. This is an excellent time to go. I'm Steve Foss here. A couple housekeeping things for those of you that just joined us. A, this webinar is being recorded. If you have to leave in the middle of it, or you have a question that doesn't get answered, any of those things, or there's something you just like more information, we're going to make this link available to you. We're going to show you at the end of this webinar how you can get a copy of the link and use it and even forward it to friends, because there's some very, very important information that we're going to be discussing tonight concerning Alzheimer's disease. Number 2, this is actually part 2 of a 3-part series on Alzheimer's disease. Tonight is part 2. We covered part 1 last week, and next week we're going to cover part 3. Tonight we're going to be discussing something called DHA fats. Most of you on the call are saying, I know exactly what that is. Others on the call are saying, I have no idea what that is. But it has the word fat in it, so it must be bad. Well, we're going to talk about that. You will notice on the right-hand side that there is a chat box. If you have any questions, you can chat them in here. We will try to get to all the questions tonight. We're going to go about 45 minutes. We should be done about 7:45. We may go a little bit longer, but we want to conserve your time and make sure that you receive the maximum benefit for being on this call tonight. So thank you for joining us, everybody. And let's just go ahead and get this show started here. If you missed us last week, you missed a good one. It was part 1 of the Alzheimer's trilogy, so to speak. And we talked about Alzheimer's disease as a vascular disease versus a neurological disorder. You know, most people see it strictly as a neurological disorder. And when we talked about Alzheimer's as a vascular disease, this was a new paradigm for people. Last week we talked about the key role of cardiovascular exercise. There is a relationship if this is a vascular disease. We talked about the role of the endothelium. What is it? And what is the role of the endothelium in the relationship with Alzheimer's disease? We talked about it, why it's a critical component in the cardiovascular system. And then we left everybody with some guidelines for those looking for a way to prevent these issues or slow the progression of the disease. If you would like a recorded link to that webinar, we're going to show you tonight before you leave here how to get a copy of that. You just let us know and we'll get it out to you. It's definitely worth a listen because it was a very, very good webinar. So I'm Steve Foss. I'm going to kind of guide the ship, but you need to know who is our expert tonight on this webinar, and we have a good one. Many of you know our guest, Danielle Giordano. She has a long list of why she's qualified to be on this webinar tonight. She is in multiple fitness advisory boards. Yes, the Cooper Institute. You've heard of those people. The Cardiovascular Wellness Chicago. First Responders for Fitness. She's also on the Medical Advisory Board. She has tons of noteworthy honors. She was named one of the 2013 Top 40 Under 40 by the Dallas Business Journal. She's a finalist in the Chicago Innovation Awards for 2013. She's on the advisory board of St. Jude Research Hospital and the Sunday of Hope Project. And, of course, you probably know her as the president and CEO of Define Sculpting and Nutrition. She's on the board of directors for the Alzheimer's Cure Foundation. We're so lucky to have her. Welcome, Danielle. Are you there?
I absolutely am, and I heard that comment about the chai latte, sugar, empty calorie. You knew I was going to say something, right?
Well, I knew. I had to throw it out there. So, folks, if you have a pumpkin spice latte there, do what she says. Go pour it down the drain right now, and we'll go from there. Well, Danielle, thank you for being with us. You mind if we just get straight into the meat and potatoes of tonight, because we have a long way to go and many things to cover. And first of all, I guess the first question that everybody on the call is asking, what exactly is a DHA fat? And where do you find it in food sources? Because it's a fat, does that mean that it's bad? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first and foremost, I really want to go over, the DHA fat is not the only type of beneficial fat that is out there. Now, that is the one that we're going to talk about in detail tonight. But I just did want to make everyone aware that it's not a loner out there in the world of fighting for good health. The two that people are the most familiar with are the EPA fats and the DHA fats. So the EPA fats, that's your icosapentaenoic. Excuse me, that one always trips me up, Steve.
Well, that's a mouthful. That's why. I'm glad you got through it.
It is. And then, of course, the star of the show tonight, is the hexatonic. And I know that's a mouthful, and we're just going to refer to them as DHA and EPA. That's the way that you're going to see them talked about in the media, or if you are, looking on any kind of supplement or that type of thing. The big difference between all these, and I'm going to get geek here for just 1 second, is basically the carbon elements and structure to these 3 acids and the double bonds that are created between them. I'm not going to get real deep into that, but basically your EPA and your DHA are highly unsaturated. Highly unsaturated. This is what lets them have the beneficial properties that we're looking for. And specifically when we talk about DHA fats tonight, the fats that are going to be for cognitive maintenance and for hopefully either to slow or prevent this awful disease of Alzheimer's.
Well, Danielle, it's interesting because a phrase that's being thrown around a lot on food boxes, everything from Cheerios to wherever, is the expression heart healthy. So we've all heard of these heart healthy fats. Are those DHA fats as well?
Well, you have to kind of think of DHA and EPA when you're talking about heart health, kind of the same way that you would talk about insoluble fibers and soluble fibers. Basically, they're both great, and DHA and EPA are both great. They both have good qualities. But like when you're looking at fiber, soluble fiber has just a little bit more beneficial value than the insoluble. Do we need them both? We absolutely do. But the soluble fiber is going to give us more in the long run health benefits. For our discussion this evening, DHA is going to have more of the comprehensive and the brain functionality, where EPA is really more connected with cardiovascular health. Now, both of them contribute to both mental and cardiovascular health, but one is just a little bit more beneficial on the cognitive side, and one is just a little bit more beneficial on the cardiovascular side. Both are very complex, and both are essential, really, to a dietary consumption.
So, in your opinion, why is a DHA fat such an important component for the prevention or even the slowing of the deterioration of a person suffering from Alzheimer's disease?
Well, I mean, there's several, and I know that we're going to get into a lot more of the deeper nuts and bolts of this. But that screen, if you could go back just one for me, that
Sure.
one screen that was up there, you know, DHA fats are crucial in normal metabolism, and I think that's something that kind of gets overlooked. Besides the actual benefits directly to Alzheimer's disease, people who intake DHA fats, there are several studies, as you know, my favorite thing to say is Google me, for diminished depression and just having overall healthy brain function, especially for pregnant women. And I think, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, we get so caught up in folic acid, which is extremely important. Mothers-to-be kind of forget about the cognitive development of the fetus and also the youth. You know, in my nutritional seminars, I talk about how parents agonize over what sport their kid is in and how many extracurricular activities they're in and what college they're going to go to in preparatory school. But the simplest thing of just getting good quality DHA fats, starting from a very young age or starting even as a fetus, is so crucial. And then again, just for cognitive maintenance, you know, for focusing ability, for, you know, reasoning capabilities and being able to actually stay on target and be able to have thoughts that form patterns. You know, some of the most brilliant minds in mathematics and engineers, if you take a look at what their dietary intake is, you'll see a very close correlation to getting these type of fats into their diet. And then, of course, you know, we have the epidemiological studies, which I know we're going to talk about one in particular here in just a little bit. But it is just, you see over and over again in these studies how these patterns in this cause and effect relationship are just, there's an undeniable correlation between these two fats. So I just wanted to mention that real quick before we really dig into the Alzheimer's link.
Well, I'm glad you went there because, to be honest with you, I think in a webinar like this, everybody's going to find a hot button, something that you're going to talk about to where they go, oh, yeah. Myself, for people that don't know, I'm a male age 55. I look here at metabolism and I say, oh, my gosh, what happened? What happened to my metabolism? Others that see diminished depression on here, anybody that knows somebody who is a therapist knows that's one of the largest problems in America, depression. A lot of people are suffering from depression. So there are some very, very important ramifications to this whole DHA fat thing, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
Awesome. Well, let's press on a little bit, and because we are talking about Alzheimer's. What is the link? Can DHA fats help those with Alzheimer's? Can they help those without the risk of Alzheimer's? Tell us a little bit about the link between those fats and Alzheimer's disease.
Well, first and foremost, and this kind of goes back to our webinar last week about the cardiovascular system, and really understanding that the cardiovascular system is directly linked to the central nervous system. The central nervous system, of course, is your brain and your spinal column, that entire inner working of, veins and arteries and obviously nerves that are in there and cartilage and such. And one of the key things that we pulled out from last week was high blood pressure. And we pulled out the very delicate vessels that are in the brain. Just like you have endothelial cells that are in, your torso, because that's what most people think. Oh, cardiovascular system is somewhere between my, my neck and my pelvis. No, it's more than that. Endothelial cells are also in the brain cells and the brain vessels as well, too. So, high blood pressure is just such an important component of this whole thing, and it's something that we need to, really pay attention to. Also, DHA fats need to come from the diet. The human body simply can't synthesize them out of, pure air. Just like we know cholesterol, obviously, we can get cholesterol from food, and cholesterol is a necessity. We're going to talk about cholesterol in relation to these two fats in a second, but, you need to have cholesterol. Well, you can get it from the diet, but your body also makes cholesterol. And DHA fats are one of those things. It's very unique. Your body can't simply spontaneously make them. They have to come from the diet. And the other thing is the percentage of short chain omega-3s are found in plant seed sources. Honestly, plant seed sources, I believe, are one of the best ways to get it if you're a vegan. Obviously, a vegan or vegetarian, if you're strict about that, not getting it from a fish source, they can be converted into those longer chain fats. That beautiful acid that we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this evening, the ALA, and that is a short chain omega-3 that's found in flax seeds, hemp, and walnuts. Now again, is this the best source to get it from? No, the best source to get it from is a fish source. And I know we're going to get into that a little bit more, but it is out there for those who are vegan, strict vegans or vegetarians, that there's an option. It's not quite as effective, but there is an option.
Well, the interesting thing, once again, that I heard you say that's important to me, and I'm sure to others that are on this call, this is not something that naturally happens in the body. We need to do something. We need to take action, true?
You must be proactive about getting quality DHA fats. And I know that supplements are something we're going to talk about as well tonight, but there's so many different types of supplements out there and so many different marketing ploys that are on so many different products. And you really need to be educated about getting these fats, but not only getting them, but getting a pure source of them and making sure that it's a clean source that you're getting it from too. Because anybody can take a fish oil, but it's what caliber of fish oil you're taking, what is the beneficial properties of the particular fish oil that you're taking. And like I said, I know we're going to get into that in a little bit, but it's very important to know it's not just, hey, let me get it in. It's particularly what is the quality of what you're getting in.
Well, and I guess fish oil, just like anything else, if you're a neophyte like me and you walk into a health food store and there's an entire wall of product, and of course some of the worst products have some of the best marketing. So luckily we have people like you that can walk us through the process, let us know what to look for, and help us make some informed, intelligent decisions on what we're going to do with our diet. So as far as you had mentioned earlier concerning the seeds, you mentioned hemp seeds and walnuts. Anything else come to mind that may be a good source? Not as good as fish oil, but a good source?
Well, I mean, you can throw flax seeds in there as well, too. I mean, hemp seeds, quite honestly, are, I believe, the most versatile. They're not going to need refrigeration. There are several different companies that make them. I have a picture of my particular favorite brand that's down in that left-hand corner. But they don't need refrigeration. They're highly portable, and they can go on anything. You can throw them in a salad. You can throw them in yogurt. You can eat them straight. They have kind of a nutty flavor to them, so they actually have kind of a good taste. You don't need a walnut cracker like our friends across the screen there. But at the same time, those are a very good source as well, too. And actually, for those who are past the age of 50, particularly for men because of the testosterone droppage, walnuts are actually a great, great option.
Awesome. We did get a question that was chatted in here from Jane in Fort Worth, who says, are all of these products found in a grocery store, or do you need to go to a health food store to find them?
You know, really, I mean, flax seeds you should pretty much be able to find in any grocery store. Hemp seeds you should be able to find in any grocery store, as well as walnuts. Now, I will tell you that you probably need to go to a natural section, whether it's a Dominic's or a Tom Thumb or a Kroger or a Target or what have you. You're going to probably want to go into the health food section, or at least the section where you're going to find organics, non-GMOs, that type of thing. They're typically not readily available at the checkout unless you go to some place like Whole Foods or Central Market or that type of thing, where, of course, they are. But that's a little bit different of a store from a mainline grocery.
Let's talk a little bit more about first link.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's a direct component between cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's. The risks for cardiovascular disease are, when you have the same risk, the acceleration of your risk of Alzheimer's is exponentially larger. And as a matter of fact, when you look at those risk factors side by side, and blood pressure being the first one that comes at the top of the list, you'll see that there's a lot of correlation there. And of course, we talked about last time the difference between vascular dementia and Alzheimer's. There is a connection, obviously, but most of dementia cases worldwide, but particularly in the United States, because that's where we're at, are going to be considered a vascular dementia diagnosis. And that, again, unfortunately, that can lead or can root from stroke and again, going back to those cardiovascular risk factors, and specifically those endothelial cells that are in the brain. And here's the other thing, that if somebody ever calls you a fathead from now on, you should be like, absolutely right. Because the actual brain itself is made of an extremely high concentration of DHA fat. So, you go back to, why do you want to have this in the prenatal stage? Why do you want to, give DHA fats to children? Why do you want to continue to take it as you get older? Why is it such a prevention for Alzheimer's? One of the most important links is this is what the brain is made out of. This is essentially the structure of the brain is coming from these fats. DHA fat is also taken up to the brain in preference to any other fatty acids. Again, going back to that EPA and DHA when we were making that correlation between the two. Well, EPA is more of a cardiovascular benefit, and DHA is more for cognitive impairment. And that's simply because the brain can actually absorb and take it in much easier than the other forms. And, the thing is the turnover of DHA fat in the brain is extremely fast. That's the other thing that you need to realize, which is why this is something that you want to have as a dietary source on an ongoing basis. It's not, we talk about, fat-soluble and water-soluble vitamins whenever we're talking about vitamins and supplements. Well, you need to kind of think of this in the same way. This is something that needs to be in the diet on a constant basis. I know we're going to talk about sleep as well on this webinar, but when you go to sleep, your brain is actually detoxifying. It's getting out. It's replenishing. It's shedding its skin, for lack of a better term. Well, there needs to be new, healthy input coming back into that brain. And, although most people know that I am a vegan, I do take fish oil. The brand that I choose to take is down in the right-hand corner there, and that's Nordic Naturals. Anybody who knows me knows that I thoroughly vet anything that I put in my body. But getting it particularly from fish is the best source of getting DHA fats. It's one of those things that need to be a priority. So many people worry about taking the multivitamin every day. I would almost be, upset to say, get your DHA in before you worry about vitamin C and vitamin A and turmeric, although they're all important. This is, you're talking about your longevity and your quality of life. And I think that is the biggest thing that Alzheimer's disease steals from people and their families is the quality of life. There's a difference between existing and truly living. It's such a horrible disease. And again, that's one of the reasons why I'm so proud to be associated with the Alzheimer's Cure Foundation and what they're trying to do. But I digress. I'm going to get off on a different track. You got to reel me in, Steve.
Well, no, actually, I'm glad you went there because that lets people see that you're actually approaching this topic not only from an intellectual and a scientific standpoint, but from a passion standpoint, too. And, I mean, this is some pretty radical stuff we've been talking about tonight and last week. The fact that Alzheimer's could actually be a cardiovascular disease, that DHA fats operate very fast as compared to other type of fats. There's a lot to process in this. But as you process, folks, the information that's given here, this will help you fight this disease. And really, that's why we're all here. That's why we're doing this, because it is a nasty disease, just like she said, and we can fight, and we can win in many cases. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. Prevention is key. Prevention is absolutely key. And being accountable for what you're putting into your body and how you live day-to-day life. We all make about 80,000 choices in any given day, which seems like a lot, but that's the best statistic that I think is out there, the most realistic. And it's the truth. We all have choices to make every day.
Well, it's interesting. Prevention is the key. And, in so many areas of life, obviously, if you talk to a mechanic, they're going to say, hey, change the oil in your car, and it's going to last longer. But so many people wait till a situation or a problem manifests and grows. We wait till all the weeds are in our yard before we do something about it. This disease, which is nasty, should be outflanked. We should actually start doing some of the things now to prevent this disease. So can you tell us a little bit as far as just average Joe on the street, what can we do to help abate this sickness?
Well, I kind of compare it to a car. If you have a really nice car and you put some nice money in, you have a nice Maserati, or I don't know what everybody's dream car is, maybe a Lotus or BMW, I don't know, whatever somebody's dream car is, you have an engine in that car, and that engine really is the heart of the car, right? I mean, it could have a really nice paint job, but if the engine doesn't turn over, well, it's a really nice hunk of metal that's nice and shiny that's sitting in your driveway. You have to maintain that. You have to clean it. You have to maintain it. You have to change the oil that's going in. You have to stay on top to keep it functioning at a high level. And I think that's a great way to look at the brain and prevention of this disease. The formation of plaques, and Steve, you and I have worked together before. How absolutely passionate I am about aspartame and people getting aspartame out of their diet, and how it's a sticky plaque. It adheres to the fat in the brain. If you take in good quality DHA fats, that helps the reduction of that stickiness of the plaque. Now, when you're talking about something like aspartame, once it's in the body, it's in the body. But there are other plaques that can form as well, too. So it's a preventative measure. It's like using high-octane gas, I guess, in a performance car. And I go back to what I had said a few minutes ago about when you sleep, your brain is actually detoxifying. It's actually rejuvenating every single night when you go to sleep, which is why sleep is so critically important, and inflammation is so important. The inflammation of the brain, I mean, there's hundreds of chronic diseases that you can talk about. Obviously, there's lethal diseases as well if it's contracted or if it starts to acquire in the brain. And it's key that we keep this oxidation down. It's key that we let the brain detoxify itself. We let the brain regenerate and hit the revamp button. And inflammatory is one of the most crucial parts of that. And it's kind of a no-brainer. We know that dietary fish oil is inflammatory. People have been taking it for a multitude of reasons, including joint pain, people who have arthritis. I recommend it as a physical a protector against next day and second day soreness from muscle tissue whenever you have a workout. There's so many good things that you can say, but the inflammatory properties, I think, are one of the most important.
Well, it's interesting. You used a great saying that we've all done. It is a no-brainer. And, the interesting thing about what we're talking about tonight, especially when you talk about things like neuroprotectin involved in brain cell repair, is it possible that as we get older, instead of losing our mind, that we can actually get sharper, that we can repair some of those brain cells, that we can feel a little more alert, alive, and just mentally sharper if we take in the right supplements?
Well, and let me be very clear about this. The brain cells, once brain cells have died, they're not like red blood cells or skin cells or, regenerative properties of some of the other organs in the body. Once those brain cells are dead, and we're going to talk about gray and white matter, I think, on the next slide here, but once they're perished, they're perished. Now, what you can do is the neurological pathways that are sending signals back and forth throughout the brain. That's something that can absolutely be increased, even if there is death of cells. Now, that all depends on exactly how much of the brain cells have perished. Obviously, you will reach a point where if there are too many that are perished, well, then there's obvious signs that happen, and there's obvious a decline of quality of life that happens. But keeping those brain cells firing, and particularly next week whenever we talk about motor units and how physical fitness and exercise play a key role in the prevention of Alzheimer's, that's part of it, is keeping those brain cells functioning, keep them firing. That goes back to the anti-inflammatory, and that goes back to the oxidation process of the brain, in my opinion.
Tell us a little bit more about the study that I have up here. It was an amazing study from 2007 from the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Pittsburgh. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, there's a lot of different studies that we could have talked about tonight, a lot. If you Google Alzheimer's studies and DHA fats, there are a numerous amount you can pick from. The reason why I picked this one out is this was one of the first ones that positively linked DHA with behavior. With different crucial aspects of the brain that control behavior. And this was huge because at the time, and I know 2007 doesn't seem like it's that long ago, but truly it was. When this study came out, you had people in the neurological community being like, what are you talking about? Like this can't be, this dietary source cannot be a preventative, preventative measure for Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is a neurological disorder, and and this cannot happen. But that's exactly what they found the opposite of. They found out that not only did it slow the progression of Alzheimer's, but depression as well. And you have to understand that the subjects that were used in this particular study had moderate to severe dementia at this point. And they were catching it, in my opinion, a little bit late. But they still slowed the progression down, and that is just absolutely, it's absolutely crucial. And when you talk about that gray matter, and I put a little bit in here about gray matter, gray matter has so much to do with the regulation of moods. It has so much to do with when people have outbursts, or they get angry, or they're happy, or this is all interrelated and tied together, and specifically with the actual cell compounds, the actual cell bodies, and specifically where they're located. And the two areas of the brain where you're going to have the most concentration of this gray matter is going to be in the cerebral hemispheres, and then the and I'm going to butcher this, Steve, and I'm not a neurologist, but the cerebral cortex, and one of the most crucial, in my opinion, quotes that come out of this very long study that is pages and pages long is one that came from the actual researcher who did it, who was doing her postdoctoral degree work in cardiovascular health. And she migrated to what was thought of at the time as a neurological disorder, being dementia and Alzheimer's and depression. And she was talking about the widespread biological functions within the body, including the brain. And she was talking about that specifically in relation to DHA fats. And again, I would encourage people to Google this study and read this study in its entirety. It is long, but it is worth the read. And it was significant because back in 2007, nobody had ever thought of this. And it was proven, and that's power to me. Because once you have the facts to back up what a theory is, then it's hard to dismiss it.
Well, folks, if you just joined us, and I know some people came in late here, this is the second of 3 webinars where we're talking about Alzheimer's disease. Tonight we're talking about DHA fats, and it's been absolutely startling the importance of DHA fats. When we talk about not only mood, but behavior, but the relationship to Alzheimer's, I mean, this is just the beach of the frontier. There's a lot of different ways that we can go. And obviously, she did mention earlier that this is not something naturally occurring in the body, that we need to do something to make that happen. We need to take care of our own health. So I guess the next question that I need to ask is, if somebody isn't getting DHA fats from the food that they're eating, maybe fast food or just bad diet, what alternatives are available? And I have to be honest with you, with all the supplements on the shelves, how can you tell the good ones from the bad ones?
Well, I always tell people to research on their own. Again, I'm a huge advocate of what goes into my body. Dementia runs in my family, Alzheimer's runs in my family, so I am particularly aware of that and taking steps to prevent that. And hands down, Nordic Naturals is just the quality, the third-party testing that they go through, the freshness of the product and the purity of the product. I don't care what salesman tries to sell you any other brand or any other line of products. Do your research. You can put these particular products up against anything else that's on the shelves, and you'll see that it's simply a superior product, especially with the prenatal, as you see I had pictured there, and the children's DHA. It's crucial. And one of the things that I really like about them is specifically with those children's DHA, they make them very small. And I think that's important because, you want your child to take something, you want it to be easy to swallow, and they do that. And they make them in flavors. And I think that takes the stigma out of, fish oil. Ooh, I'm going to get the fish burpees. And something that I will add, and Steve, one of my most favorite foods is guacamole. And one of the things that I love is there is a liquid fish oil that's made by Nordic Naturals. It's lemon flavored. And if you put that in guacamole, not only does it give it that citrusy hint to it, but it keeps the guacamole from turning colors, and you get your omegas in there, and it's just one of those great things, and it's just a superior product that just goes through so much thorough testing that I really cannot say enough about them, and it's what I put in my own body, and I think that says enough.
Well, folks, you've always heard the saying, knowledge is power, but tonight, knowledge is health. Read the label. Get the right supplement. Do the right things to maximize your health. That's kind of what we're talking about. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. And, if people, want to go the extra step, I always tell them when you're looking at fish oil, turn the bottle around. They're going to list on there DHA and EPA on the back of that bottle. Look at it. Add up those two numbers and divide it by the total milligrams that are on the front of the package. Some of these fish oils that are out there are maybe 30% usable fat or 40% usable fat. I want more than that. Because obviously in the American diet we do not need any more omega-9s. We are overabundant with omega-9s, not something that we need. And do your own math. See what kind of a concentration there is And then do a little research on your product. Do they get third-party tested? Where exactly do they source their oil from? What fish? Where do they find the fish? It's about doing your homework. Or you can just take my opinion and go get Nordic Naturals.
Absolutely. So guys, definitely check out Nordic Naturals. You're just going to want to check it out. And Danielle, what else should we do? Let's put together a full game plan to battle this disease.
Well, sleep is absolutely essential, and it's not just because you don't want to have the fog brain the next morning. As we talked about, letting the body, the brain purge and letting the body detoxify happens when you sleep, and it can't happen when you're resting or watching TV. It has to happen when your body is in deep REM sleep that it happens. Regular exercise, both aerobic and anaerobic. Now, this goes back to not only those crossovers between cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's or vascular dementia, but it also goes back into motor units, which is something that we're going to talk about next week. I think not that many people really understand what the benefits of regular physical activity is, for this disease or for anyone in general just trying to maintain their health, but it is. And then lastly, and I know we talked about this last week, but I think it is so crucial to introduce L-arginine and L-citrulline, which are two amino acids, into the diet. In particular, there's only one supplement that I would recommend, and that is Pro-arginine. And if anybody has any specific questions, because that's not something that you can just go to any store and buy, but please don't go rogue and go on the internet because there's so many imposters that are out there. And the dosage is client-specific, and that would be something where my contact information is at the bottom. I just implore people to send me an email, call the office number, reach out and make sure before you go guessing at your health. So bringing in the fish oil, regular sleep, regular exercise, and then bringing in a supplement like Pro-arginine or bringing in Pro-arginine what I would recommend.
Hey, Danielle, I do want to back up for a second because we just had a really good question that was chatted in. Which one of the supplements would be good for somebody who does a morning shake? That could go into a blender, maybe as far as a morning shake or a smoothie, something like that.
Well, first of all of these that are pictured here, just so you know, are all caplets. So these are all liquid caps. So this would not be something you'd put into a blender. I'm thinking that you probably have some chunks. What I would recommend is the liquid form, kind of like what I was talking about, goes into the guacamole in my house. Mm-hmm. Putting that in and putting, about, a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half, maybe even a tablespoon, depending on how preventative you want to get. But just putting that into the shake and getting a nice citrus flavor to it. The lemon is the only one that I've tried. But it works well, and I think if you're making a green smoothie in the morning, it's a nice offset to a kale or a Swiss chard or a parsley or a wheatgrass or a barley grass. It gives it a nice balancing act, and quite honestly might make it much more palatable, especially for those who are just getting into shakes. But that would be the liquid, and they're sold in little blue glass bottles. Very easy to find. They're on the same shelf as any of these other products.
Well, somebody also chatted in to let us know that Ultimate Omega comes in a liquid form, which you just discussed, or they can buy the Arctic cod liver oil. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, actually, the cod liver oil is actually the one that I use for the guacamole. And, when you're taking the Ultimate Omega, and the two that I personally take is the DHA Extra and the Ultimate Omega. I personally think that those two is 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, increasing on and wants to be particularly proactive with this. Those are the two that I would recommend. But I think they would be pleasantly surprised with the liquids as well, because I think there's a stereotype that any kind of a fish oil has to be nasty and it has to, oh my God, I dread even thinking about it kind of a thing. But it's really not with these particular products. They really do have a very nice palatable flavor to them. And I think that's important, especially when you have kids in the mix or adults that act like kids sometimes to make it palatable.
And just FYI, absolutely, FYI people, when she talks about getting rid of the nasty factor, it does come in flavors like strawberry, orange, lemon, something ultra flavored. Not sure what that is, but definitely something to try. So the bottom line, folks, is this. Which one is right for me? There's only one way to find out. Contact Danielle yourself. You know, there are 3 different ways that you can contact her. Hey, drop her an email. Here's her email address right here. Do me a favor, grab a pen real quick and write it down. And send her an email and say, hey, what about me? Because Danielle is awesome at assessing your needs, not kind of a blanket need, your particularly needs, and then formulating a plan for you to get healthy. Or you can call the number here on the screen. Write it down, 469-751-2220. And definitely go to the page because there's a lot of benefits of being on that page. You will get great, remember how we talked about knowledge is health? You'll get great knowledge, great motivation when you just don't feel like doing this another day. It's good to stay connected with people that will motivate you, that will teach you, that will help you get healthy. So contact Danielle, say, let's form a game plan, and then just get your health under control. Is that fair enough, Danielle?
That's fair enough. And, you know, if they drop me an email with their address, I might just send them some samples of both the Pro Arginine or the Nordic Naturals. So there's
oh my gosh,
everybody. See, I know I'm in a giving mood tonight, I guess.
There it is. Free is my favorite 4-letter F word. I love it, guys. If you want some of these samples, go ahead and contact her. That's it. And lastly, we do want to talk about one more thing: the Alzheimer's Cure Foundation. You can go to their website at alzcure.org and definitely check out their Facebook page also, which is ALZ Cure. This is a nasty disease. It is just a nasty disease. You know, there's been a lot of talk lately about Ebola and some of these other viruses and things like that. In the first week, we talked about this disease costs billions with a B worldwide. It is just a nasty disease. And you can either do nothing, say that's interesting, or you can become a part of the solution. So do that. Give. Every little bit helps. It does. And this is how you can contact them and do it. Hey, before we say goodbye, Danielle, I do want to give a preview of coming attractions. Next week, folks, you're not going to want to miss this because next week we're going to literally talk about the exercise effect and Alzheimer's. We've talked a little bit about it, so what do? Okay, I want to exercise. I want to beat this. I want to abate this. Do I go to a gym? Do I jog? Do I buy something from an infomercial? What do? Danielle is going to point you down the narrow path to help you be healthy. You're not going to want to miss this. That's it. Final words, Danielle, before we thank you for this?
No, just take charge of your life. Have accountability and have adherence to a good, healthy lifestyle. And check out the Alzheimer's Cure Foundation. They are probably one of the most innovating and trailblazing organizations in the United States fighting for this cure. Go check them out. Just an amazing, amazing group.
Danielle Giordano, thank you for being on this call tonight. Guys, if you want a copy of this call, you want to pass on, contact Danielle. We'll get it into your hands. If not, thank you for your time. Like she said, take your health into your own hands. Do something great this week. And let's meet back here in 6 days and 23 hours where we're going to talk about the exercise effect and Alzheimer's disease. I'm Steve Foss. Thank you guys so much for being with us tonight. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.